Great, yeah. Because that's developing a new syllabus and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I need to start working on my next. That's good. Thank you for the reminder. Good.
So we're good to go whenever you guys want to start. عايزة افصل حاجة تاني منها. الكاميرا راحت مني. عملت حاجة هنا. أنا عايزة أشير الناس بس مش عايز فين أساسا. يعني عايزة الفيديو ده يطلع بس خلاص كده في أي حاجة تتغير ولا خلاص كده؟
لا خلاص. Great. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. My name is Assistant Professor Mark Dietz. I'm actually in the history department, an assistant professor there. I'm teaching mostly African history, but I also serve as the director of the Al-Walid Center for American Studies and Research, which is what brings me to this room today. So you may, if you don't know where we are, we're actually like right next to TBS over here. We have a little entryway there that says the Al-Walid Center for American Studies and Research, but we go by the abbreviation CASAR. And CASAR was established by a gift from Prince Al-Walid from the Saudi royal family in 2003. It actually, I think it was a very large gift, and it basically led to the construction of this building with a center with his name on it. So he has his name on the side of the building and also on the center. He started this in 2003 after the 9/11 terrorist attacks in the United States to try to build cultural understanding between the United States and the Middle East. And so his idea was to set up a network of study centers in basically both locations. So he created they started this center here at AUC. There's also a center at AUB in Beirut. And then there are Islamic study centers at Cambridge and Edinburgh in the UK, and then Georgetown and Harvard in America. Since then, we've added NYU Abu Dhabi to the network and a few museums as well, because we're really focusing more on cultural development. So anyway, that's kind of the vision for the center. That's why we're here. But a lot of what we do is driven by my very able and energetic assistant, Yasmin Al-Ghazali, who is often the one driving these debates, which I think the students really enjoy. You know, we have talks and we have like experts come and give talks and things like that, and various faculty, but I think the students love a good debate, and we usually have more people kind of trickling in here as it continues. But so I'm thankful for Yasmin's assistant and also our assistant who's been helping us in CASAR for the last few years as a research assistant, Madalena Gilka. So anyway, that is us. The topic of today's debate is about banning books, which is a topic somewhat personal to me because I'm an alum of the United States Naval Academy, which recently had 500 books banned from the Naval Academy Library as an initiative of the new American presidential administration of Donald Trump to get rid of DEI. So basically, any books in the library that had anything to do with race or gender or any of these kinds of things have now been banned and thrown away. This is happening in other places around the country. By the way, there are also American academic institutions that are facing reduced funding and sort of censoring of anything that's pro-Israel as well. So, there's or anything that's critical of Israel or Zionism. So, there's a lot to talk about here, where these lines get drawn, who gets to draw them, why, who has the power to decide on these things. I think they're very important, certainly to us in the academy, but I think it's broader than just us in the academy. I don't think this is just an academic question, if you will, in terms of the meaning of an academic question being something that doesn't really matter. I actually think academic questions do matter. That's why we study them. But this is certainly much more than just an academic question. So with that, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to stay for the whole debate, so I'm really just here to kind of kick it off and let you all get started. And then we will have a winner of the debate at the end, and we'll post their name in a very noticeable manner near the door of CASAR over there by TBS for everybody to see. So anyway.
Basically, the winner gets their name on our social media outlets, which are Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. And we also have an honor board at the center.
Yeah.
So you're gonna get your name up for like a few weeks there as the winner of the debate. So,
Yeah, so anyway, welcome.
and a
I'll
certificate.
turn it over to Yasmin and Madalena for the rest of the debate.
Accept your deeds.
I'll see you later. Thank you.
Okay, let's start this off.
Hi everyone, I'm Madalena, I'm Vice President of the Literature Club. This debate is done in collaboration with the Literature Club. And it's a very interesting topic. And one of the great things about this debate is that there is no formal structure really that you should follow. So if you don't have experience, don't worry. It's just try to form your argument the best of your ability based on your side. If you have research done, that's great. If not, but if you just have, arguments formed, that's also great. And it's just gonna be, we're just gonna judge and we're gonna write comments for each speaker. But please, before you start speaking, please introduce yourself, say your name, just so that we know who we're judging, who are leaving comments for. And yeah, should we split them in sides? Which side is?
Sure. Yes, no. So should there be censorship? Yes. There shouldn't be? No. Side.
Also, censorship is about so many things. So you can first
You're undecided. Oh, you're split in between?
no.
You're actually split? So that you're the yes side, he's the no side?
On the side.
Yes, no. And I'm against censorship. Yes.
Okay, you're with censorship, we think.
Partial censorship.
Also, sorry. To the best of your.
Do we get to pick or?
You get to pick your side, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. No. You guys, if this is your preparation. So if you think, so the question is, should parents and community members have a say in restricting certain books in schools or school libraries? You can also think of public libraries based on factors such as religion, age appropriateness, and more. Notice that the debate question doesn't include politicians here. It's more community members, parents, but if you want to bring in, politicians' role, you can also do that. So it's which side is yes, which side is no?
So
Yes.
no censorship side?
Yeah.
Yes, censorship side.
No, I don't think there's anyone in the yes section. We're also no.
So everyone's no, except for you? Awesome.
Okay, so then
I had a clarification question about the debate question.
Yeah.
Does community members include local politicians, or is it specifically the very sort of locale?
It's a general question.
I think it's a general question. You can include both if you want. If you just want to focus on community members, it's like anyone who is affected, who lives in the community, so it can include like local politicians. It usually means not local politicians, but the citizens themselves, but it can be also politicians. You don't have to restrict yourself. If you have something really good you want to say,
Fine.
I think we should start first with, I guess, the people who support it, like to hear the pro arguments.
Hey,
So like, if you think that, parents, community members should have a say, you can, who volunteers to speak first?
The only yes argument.
okay,
is
so your name? Your name?
Islam Nadim.
His name.
Yes.
All right. After you're done, I just need all of your emails so I can be able to announce the winner and get you in on future events. All right. So Islam, your opinion is?
So basically, I'm with partially restricting, or parents and community members should at least have a say in restricting certain books in school or certain libraries or certain places. Why? The main reason is it's a subjective matter. Someone in Egypt, someone in the US, someone in whatever, Finland or Australia, they all might have different opinions about it. The main argument is that it differs from one culture to the other, one religion to the other, one community to the other. What I'm saying, or my opinion, basically comes from my religious standings. I'm Muslim, so I might find some certain books that goes against my religion. Am I with completely banning it? Absolutely not. At the end of the day, we should learn these ideologies, we should learn these things, not to follow it, but to understand different types of perspectives, which are bound to happen. This is life. But at the end of the day, there are some things that should be done to protect our community. Like, for example, would I want my kids to learn about certain things such as diversity or sexuality or these things that goes against my religion? Not necessarily. I wouldn't like it. But would I like them to learn it or understand it when they grow up to a certain age? Yes, I would. That's why, for example, I'm against them knowing these stuff, or I'm with banning or restricting these books in certain places such as schools, especially elementary and middle school, and certain places, or put an age limit in public libraries. But when they grow up to certain ages, to certain limits, okay, and for researchers or regarding researchers, or people or experts, that it should be allowed for them to research the ID within some boundaries and within some limits that are done to protect the society from certain things. We are not saying that they are bad. We're not saying that they are not people. No, at the end of the day, they're people. They have the right to believe, to learn what they want, to act whatever they want to act, but to their own boundaries and their own places. Some certain places should not allow these because there are some restrictions. In this case, it's religious. In other cases, it's traditions and other.
So specifically, you're talking about homosexuality, I'm gathering.
It's an example. It's,
As an example.
yes, as an example. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
That's it.
Nadim?
By the way, guys, you can respond to each other.
Yeah, exactly. The
Like,
idea is to
don't feel
respond to
like-
each other.
Hi, I'm Maria.
Okay.
I disagree mostly with Islam. I believe that there's a problem with the idea of banning books relating to gender or equality or diversity, because this creates in-groups and out-groups. The concept of creating an in-group creates the concept of our group, aka in this example, white people. They are more superior because we're white. This is our group. We are good people. We are privileged. We go to good schools and so on. While other groups, lack of information alone is a bad influence. Being unaware of Black people or not getting to learn about a person who's Black or understanding that there is equality between them automatically correlates the concept of they're different. Different is bad. People go by the saying that different is bad. But having, I understand banning them to a certain extent to prevent people from force-feeding children these ideas, that's understandable. However, banning them completely is not a rational idea, because schools, for example, are a moderated or controlled environment. Closing in on such an environment will possibly end up in, once these kids graduate or face the real life, they're gonna be hit with the reality of people are different. But it's gonna make things harder, not only for them, but for society as a whole to interact. There should be some guidelines, but banning them doesn't make sense.
I'm gonna agree with you that banning them completely doesn't make sense.
Hi, name.
Sorry, I'm Sarah.
Sarah.
I agree that banning them completely doesn't make sense, but I think for schools specifically, I think we have to understand them in terms of private and public spheres. And the factors that have been mentioned in the question, such as religion, for example, I believe in secular countries should belong in the private sphere. Is it something that governments should be able to influence? For example, in a US school, if all the theology books are just about Christianity, what if you have a Muslim child going to the school and the only thing they know is Christianity? Shouldn't this be something that parents should be able to control from their own home? If someone, for example, does believe that homosexuality is a good thing and they should be able to support it, they can, at their own will, teach their children at home as part of their private sphere of influence. Why is this something that the public sphere, for example, government schools, should have a say over? Additionally, in terms of age appropriateness, parents do have a certain level of control over their children, and we're talking specifically about schools, so we do want to make sure that things are age appropriate, depending on what the parent thinks is for their child.
Right, okay. Yes, name?
Sabina.
Samira, okay.
Sabina, yeah.
Okay, I believe that books shouldn't be restricted, especially in schools, because when we're gathered in a place with several children from different backgrounds, like you said, Christian, Muslim, Black, white, brown kids, it is very important to have different books that represent different people because it builds tolerance between them. When you say that just having people, having their own parents teach them within their private sphere, it changes the perspective that that the children might have, and will maybe transmit it to school. For example, if the parents are racist, and they might say racist things to other children in school. So I do believe that books should be open, so other people have some type of knowledge about the existence of different backgrounds to be able to build tolerance. Because maybe we can also see it in Egypt, for example, when we have refugees, for example, Sudanese kids, when they go to school here in Egypt, a lot of them face bullying because other people do not, because other children, they aren't in contact with other Black children, or maybe because also we have different ways of practicing religions. So it is very important to have a sphere that is more open and more books about this type of, about different backgrounds to be able to build tolerance between children.
That's a very important point. It goes also for sexual abuse, all sorts of abuse. If I have an abusive family and I have no idea about it because nobody informed me and I have no idea, I didn't even read about it. My school doesn't allow me to read about it. I don't know. There's no way I could know. So that is actually a good point. Okay.
Hi, I'm Hannah, and I want to say I agree with Sabina. I feel like we should allow books because the whole idea of banning books is restricting people from getting knowledge. If we're talking about homosexuality, whether I agree or disagree with homosexuality doesn't negate the fact that they exist. These people exist. I should learn about them. If I'm a kid whose parents don't want to teach them about it, I go to school and I'm not taught about it, and I go and live in somewhere like very liberal, like let's say Norway or something, I'm not gonna know about this. I'm gonna see these people as these like different people from me, and I won't know how to interact. This idea of sheltering your kids in the name of, protecting them doesn't always work. Like Dr. Ghazali just mentioned, this idea of sexual abuse or any sort of abuse, we're supposed to teach our kids in schools. Schools are not made to only teach the normal curriculum. They also have a hidden curriculum. They should teach kids how to interact with the real world, how to understand people of different backgrounds. We're not supposed to just be like talking about ourselves and our environment. There are a lot of people that live in different places, have different cultures. Doesn't matter if I agree or disagree with them, these people exist, and as long as they're not spreading hate or hate speech or whatever, we're supposed to learn about them. Thank you.
Do I have to introduce myself again?
No, خلاص, I got your name.
So I totally agree with you that restriction of knowledge is a bad thing. I don't think books are only knowledge. I think that they present certain perspectives and opinions of certain things. I want to clarify that I don't think that racism specifically falls into the private sphere. I'm talking about like religion, sexuality specifically. These things, the way that they're portrayed in certain books, or maybe in ways that the parents don't want their children to be exposed to. For example, books about religion, for example, atheism, secularism. You know, in high school, for me specifically, we had to do a lot of Enlightenment theory, right? So this was something very secular, very atheistic. And if my parents didn't have a pretty like good knowledge of what I was reading about in school, then that would probably have influenced my own perspective about religion, right? Children go to school, study philosophy, stuff like that, right? So if parents don't have this sort of control over the types of books, the types of perspectives specifically on knowledge that their kids are learning, you know, they can definitely go home, they can definitely ask questions about homosexuality, about religion. Their parents can answer them those questions. I'm not saying that they don't answer them or that they keep them sort of in the dark so that when they expose to the world, they're suddenly like blindsided by everything. But the perspectives that their parents want to instill in their children, they're able to do that about those specific topics of knowledge.
Yeah, but why don't I leave my kids to form their own opinions? For example, about religion, you're taking it from your perspective, and I'm gathering you're Muslim. Yeah, same. But for me personally, I feel like religion is something very personal. I believe in God because I believe in God. I don't believe in God because my parents told me to believe in God. If your only relationship to religion is your parents basically not forcing you, but trying to encourage you about religion, then you're probably not as religious as you think you are. People are supposed to make their own opinions and try to be religious or not. We're taking this from a point of view of that religion is positive and anything else is negative. Whilst I'm Muslim and I agree that people should be religious, it's not the same for other people. Some people grow up religious, but they don't want to be religious. The idea that I can't talk about atheism because I'm scared to influence that child for them maybe to become atheist or agnostic or whatever is this idea that I'm scared of not being able to sort of give them my own opinion. Why don't we leave kids to kind of think for themselves? If you want to be religious, be religious. If you don't want to be religious, don't be religious. If you're not confident enough in your faith, then your faith is probably not as strong as you think for. It is. Yep, go ahead.
Okay. I totally agree with her, but also I wanted to jump on the idea of parents teaching their children this type of ideas. The way ideas are transmitted from parents to children is very different for all families, especially that each parents will transmit the ways they use the words. So they have already so many experience and they have already been influenced by a whole lot of things that have happened to them in their lives. So it's not fair for the children to get this whole baggage that is most probably biased and at the end would make assumptions on other people even though they don't have the real experience with them. They haven't interacted with the real world and they haven't just, they aren't, and they will judge people based on things that they haven't even seen. So it's not exactly fair or a great point to exploit.
Sorry. Samira.
Oh,
I got Mariam and then Sarah, okay, and then Slim. Okay, all right.
I want to add on to her point is in people are, it is personal, it is belief, but برضو it falls under the concept of ماشي we ban books. Okay, if they ban books, there is the internet, there's ChatGPT. If someone is really willing to find out about something or is really willing to learn about something, they'll find a way to do it. A right way, a wrong way, moderated, unmoderated. If someone's interested in finding something, they'll do it. But regardless of banning books or not, you can set guidelines to ensure they learn it in a safe way or under certain pretenses. But like leaving, like there's this saying where if you prevent the child from wanting or you don't give them something, they'll want it even more. So this also applies. If a child wants to learn about being a homosexual person, they will find a way to do it.
The wrong way.
The wrong way, come on, exactly. I understand, like a guideline would be understandable, but completely banning it, you're just making them want it more. But it complicates things, come on, later on.
All right, Sarah?
So I'm gonna address this idea of the wrong way, the right way, and I'm gonna bring this back to this public-private sphere thing, because we talk about how like the influence of parents, it might not be good, you know. So I'm gonna ask the question, why is the influence of the public school better than the influence of the parents, right? Because we're sort of assuming in this context that all of the books provided to you in the school by the government are like good books, right? They're not propaganda-esque, they're not, you know, reflective of only certain aspects of society that the government wants to instill in the child. The parents might disagree with this. Why are we saying that just because not the same as the public or the social majority that it's bad.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying in like, if, for example, you show a child a lollipop, then like, you're not gonna eat that. They're gonna want it more. But what I'm talking about is أنا مثلا كماريا, okay, I learned about what being gay means at the age of 11. Do I want to be gay? No, not necessarily, because I learned about it and I was taught about it the correct way by my parents.
Exactly.
بالظبط. فهو I learned about it in school through a friend, and this is not necessarily the right way, but I knew and it wasn't something to hide because it's something I want to learn about. What I'm talking about is, I'm not saying in like the school is the right way to learn it, or I think there will be bias there. But however, at least schools can moderate what the child is looking at. يعني they could explain homosexuality as in those are two people who love each other. It doesn't go into مثلا the harms of being a homosexual and you could get an STI مثلا, you're more like فاهمة. It's more moderated to somewhat shelter a child from such harsh information while giving them enough information to be aware.
So the problem with this approach is that schools are not here to like sort of moderately give the objective information, right? I'm from the US, so I only know about like the US public education system. But for example, there are schools who say, you know, I'm not like saying my own opinion on homosexuality or anything, but like homosexuality, we should accept it, you know, it's a good thing, we should accept love is love and everything. This is the sort of stuff they say in schools, right? This is the sort of stuff that the children are being influenced by, that they're accepting as the objective truth because they're learning it in school. Should parents have the ability to set guidelines on this kind of thing, set guidelines on the kind of books that say this kind of thing that they're being exposed to as part of their curriculum?
I think, yeah.
I have Islam and then سارة برضو. طب سارة ايه؟
لا أنا سجينة.
سارة ايه؟
Sarah Qutbuddin. Sarah Qutbuddin.
قطب الدين?
أيوة.
Okay, just so I can put the names. Okay, Islam, you wanna wait until they
Yes,
reply when I
yeah,
wanna reply?
I can reply, I can reply on a point that was stated,
Okay.
with that can be long. About restricting the books, how restricting the books doesn't mean that we don't talk about these issues. There are many different ways to talk about an issue other than a book that they will read, for example, as rules or read at home. Yeah, for example, which is something that was recently made in Ramadan and that I really respect, is the series of Lam Shamsiyya. It really puts a hand on a very important issue, okay, and an issue that Doctor you talked about, which is sexual abuse. These certain things, they should be allowed. They should actually be published more. There should be some public, sort of like public awareness. But some things that go against religion or that goes against what the community portrays or what the community believes, we shouldn't necessarily open it up for everyone. By opening it up for everyone, the child will have two options: whether learn it وخلاص learn it with no boundaries, which will probably lead to him learning it in the wrong way. Or the other option, which is the best, which is, in my opinion, the better one, is to try to control it a bit. For the parents to tell him, look, yes, there are gays and homosexuals. Is this the right way for us? No, but they are people. We should respect them. We should believe that they exist and like that. But should we follow them? No, yeah, Habib, مثلا, you shouldn't follow them. Okay, these things are or these talks, tamam, they're actually more beneficial in words by the parents or by the guardians other than the books. The books can be interpreted in a wrong way and a correct way. But the parents would have a wider horizon or a wider, we can say a wider way of actually like narrowing it down for them. So it can be interpreted in the correct way or correct manner. We're not saying that books should be totally bad. No, we're saying that it should be restricted till they enter a certain age or a certain stage in their life where they can research it more freely, while at the same time their brains are completely developed, so they're completely developed and they can respect all of the factions in the argument.
Take into account two things. One thing is you'll be surprised how many parents are actually against Lam Shamsiyya. They I guess even showing the whole idea, because they don't want to face the kids, their own kids at that same age with this topic. It's a lot easier to just not talk about it as number one. Two, this day and age, the easiest thing for a child to do with a smartphone is to get on the phone.
I was thinking of that actually, it's a really, because we are focusing on books for good reasons, because it's very relevant and it still happens and what gets published. But it's really interesting if you think also of it in comparison to like how much you get access to social media. It's basically like at this point, banning the book, like it's more dangerous, I think, to have maybe access to like unlimited social media when your brain is not developed and you get like all this. But it's really interesting when the question of like parents, right? Okay, parents, because we're putting a lot of trust here, but the parents are not gonna, parents, like it's different levels of backgrounds and different levels of education. So like everyone's parents are gonna teach them a different thing, just like, yes, books have interpretations, but parents also have their own like educational background, their own opinions. So it's also like, I think there's a lot of trust here, but the parents are gonna like instill respect. Well, I think Sabrina, I think you brought up, or someone brought up, like this point, but what if the parent passes down racism? Or what if the parent passes down hate about that specific issue? So always keep this in mind. This is not the answer, of course. Like this is just to keep in mind in the discussion, that like parents are also people and they also have their own ideologies they work with.
Okay, I had, you wanna reply?
Yeah, I just want to say, yes, your argument is completely correct. I actually endorse it, Yani. So that means the research question should only include books. It should also include social media applications and basically the pursuit of knowledge, correct? So we're not only focusing on books.
I had, yes, Sarah?
Yeah.
Sarah, what is your name? Sarah E?
Someone in the way.
Sarah H. Okay. All right, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. So, what's your name? Sorry. So, Maria made a comment a few minutes ago about how like it's difficult to control what people are going to see. Alice,
Please.
so Maria made a comment a few minutes ago about how it's going to see, and I just want to I want to add to that, and I want to add the idea of globalization. We live in a globalized world. Technology later is in our hand 24/7. So kid, it's going to be very difficult to control what the people, what as children are going to see, because we check social media, we check Instagram, we check YouTube, and all that. For example, I learned what gay memes via One Direction, the memes of Larry and all that stuff. Yeah, and I don't think I learned it through school. So that's why I think that this is why, to add on also, this is why we need schools, because they moderate. Because at the end of the day, school is an educational system. That's where you can go and learn, and that's where I think what comes in criticism. So, for example, if you guys like Sarah and Islam, they talk about how they don't want books, if I understood correctly, they don't want books like to influence the children. I think in this case, for what they think is that maybe criticism can come in, or like the context with which this book is given. Like, for example, if maybe if you guys think that homosexuality is a sin, or like it's bad, then maybe the professor can give it in the context with this is bad. That's what I think. And that's what I think school is important to like, given the message of what they think is. Does that make sense?
Wait, so I have a question, because I just make sure I understand your point right. So schools are the ones who moderate, right?
Yeah.
But then how should the professors or teachers give their own opinions about like?
Maybe it can depend on the type of school. Like, for example, if you're in an American international school, like if you're a parent and you know that you're registering your school into American international school, in this case, I think that honestly, the parents should have a minimal role, because you have like students from abroad, from international countries that go into the school, and if the parents parents need to understand like this, that there needs to be like some bit of tolerance. But for example, if the parents don't want their students to be exposed to these stuff, or like they want the students to understand that this is negative, then maybe that, for example, they can register into a religious school. And in this case, like the professors, the teachers, they can teach them in the context of criticism and negative light and all that.
Your turn, or who's turn? Okay, Mariam, and then
Awesome.
Hassan, Naeem,
I want to talk about something that will relate to books, but recently there has been a list of banned words. Okay, so I was just taking a look at them, and if this is the guideline for what books are banned, this doesn't really make sense, because why would, like, there are banned words such as women, obesity, and peanut allergies. What does this have to do, like, peanut allergies of all of them, yani, disregarding the women and the obesity, because this is just creating like minorities of sorts, but peanut allergies مثلا. Why would someone want to ban something such as this? What harm does it cause? Yani, I think this has been a bit too like, they're kind of making the situation bigger than it is. Yani, I understand wanting to put a limit مثلا on something such as gender ideology or gender diversity. Whatever people would like to limit, they can. But مثلا Hispanic, why is this a word that is يعني banned, أو مثلا identity? Historically, mental health, these are things that don't necessarily or shouldn't really. Measles مثلا, this is a disease that is normal عادي, why are words such as these يعني
the idea of banning, the idea of having a list, why have a list?
it's taking things out of proportion. يعني if books are banned based off of this list, then I don't think these, like, I think people should take a second look at what books are actually being banned, because this list is weird.
The problem is this is limiting future research. It's directly يعني aimed at decreasing research in these fields, which is very scary. For the future is extremely scary. And Hassan?
I think that this debate primarily comes down to choosing between preserving tradition and promoting tolerance. So in a sense, like, people have to, I think we have to, in a way, we have to move forward with being more tolerant as the world is globalizing more, but at the same time, we have to shift the responsibility of keeping tradition with the families, with people, especially if you're a minority in your country. You can't expect your school to adopt your own like wants and needs. And I think at the same time there needs to be policies put into place to make sure that these libraries and schools or wherever are fully inclusive, include texts from all places, all walks of life, and all like faith. Because, like, for example, if you're the argument, the LGBT argument, where people are saying, oh, we don't want to, I don't know, it might not be good to expose them to LGBT content in school or to indoctrinate them or whatnot. The same exact argument can be applied for Islamophobic sentiments, for example. Like in Germany, for example, you're required to actually state that you believe that Israel is a state and has a right to exist to naturalize as a citizen. There are these like predetermined biases that you have to like agree upon before you can even move forward to become a member of that society. So in a sense, I think that we have to find a balance between I think that as was said earlier with the like lollipop example, we have to be as inclusive as possible to make sure that people because people will always yearn for whatever they can't like achieve in a sense, or whatever they can't like reach. So I think that if a library is really fully inclusive and the communities or the person's family or whatever, like say the person's family or whatever, like helps preserve their tradition, then there's nothing wrong with having a library that's all inclusive, if that makes sense.
Actually, something that I know happened exactly because of this. For the example of FGM, for example, I found out that Islamic schools in Egypt have a different text completely that is not really true. It doesn't give any justice to what's happening because it tries to justify FGM in a religious form. Then the medical part of it and the criminal part of it is completely not given because the schools are biased and because the texts are not actually inclusive. That's one that I've seen myself.
Like, and to add on really quickly, like I'd say, for example, like Mein Kampf, for example, by Hitler, I don't think that like it's necessarily, it's not, no, I think everyone can agree that Hitler isn't a good person here, but like having his content available to be able to be seen and reviewed and commented on will help us as a society move forward to not repeat the same mistakes. So it's important to criticize and analyze content or even religion that you don't agree with, to strengthen your own beliefs and even check on them, because at the end of the day, faith comes down to believing in your own. It comes down to like you in believing that your belief is the truth, and you need to be able to back that up, if that makes sense.
Or else it's frail or fragile.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
I wanted to comment on what you made a while ago about how parents are superior, or basically that parents know better for their kids, and and schools are supposed to ban it because parents can teach it. I want to bring out a very interesting example, the FLDS church. This is a church that was mostly like to marry from each other. It's basically a cult. And this church, these kids would go to highly moderated, censored school, like they used to get taught by their parents and stuff. And these things are very highly like censored, and because of that, they would never know better. These women were basically, they had to marry these much older men that were basically pedophiles, and they couldn't do anything about it because they did not have a more objective or secular school to teach them. So this idea that we're supposed to keep all knowledge, not all knowledge, but how you said the important knowledge or the sort of controversial things to the parents, actually we're not, because we're not supposed to do that, because parents, I mean, for me, what I think is most of the time are not as objective and are not as nice as you think they are. A lot of parents have a lot of bigotry and hate within them. So this idea that we're supposed to leave it to an institution is not 100% going to get you a positive outcome, but it's definitely going to be much better than leaving the important things in the hands of the parents, because most parents are not as good as they've been.
Point, yes, go ahead.
I think the key problem here is that we are, like you said, placing, of my opinion, that we're placing too much trust in the institution, because I feel like all of these definitions that we're using of inclusivity and things as such are things that are defined by the state for the schools to portray. I think that when we talk about ideologies of parents being all like different and stuff, I think you brought that up. And they could be taught like a variety of different perspectives about a variety of different topics. I think this is a preferable thing than the state having one ideology that it gives to everyone. I think this idea that the institution is somehow this objective truth is not correct. I mean, the idea of an objective truth existing at all, I'm not sure if that's correct either, but I think having a variety of subjective truths, so to speak, is better than having everyone sort of I don't want to use the word indoctrined, but have them be all accepting of this sort of one sort of system of belief.
I mean,
and also we have to keep in mind that these are like children that we're talking about, so we have to keep in mind age appropriateness. Is age appropriateness not something that parents should have control over? Like, for example, if you're a parent, you're sending your 7-year-old to primary school, should there be erotica in the library? I don't think so.
but there isn't in most schools erotica and library for primary students.
I mean, for my experience, there has been public school library. There's a lot of stuff in there.
Public school libraries, okay, but these parents can basically go to their kids and tell them, we don't read these books. They're gonna be with their kids. They're gonna accompany their kids. They don't have to take their kids into the erotic convention. It's not put next to Winnie the comics. So this idea that we're saying that I'm not saying the state is the ultimate truth, but I would rather have someone tell my kids that we're supposed to, I'm gonna bring up another argument, but vaccination. I would much rather have an institution that tells us we're supposed to get vaccinated than having a bunch of people, a bunch of parents, like what I see in America right now with a lot of Republicans. Some people think vaccinations get you autism and others think other things. And they're all these things that do not come from books and research. At a certain point, we're supposed to trust books. This idea that we're not supposed to trust books and just trust what our parents say, most parents aren't educated. Like the people that, I don't know how to explain it, but your idea that the schools or the institutions are out to get you is not, like, it's 90% not true. Like, I agree some things, like in America, you said they push for a lot of things like, you know, Israeli propaganda or whatever, but a lot of other things, no, they're more objective, they're more scientific, and we're supposed to believe them. I'm not gonna believe, or I'm not gonna make my, like, for example, the kids that have, like, sadly Republican parents, they adopt a lot of their knowledge, and most of this knowledge is wrong. They take it from these pseudo-scientific things that they search for because they don't listen to the schools.
Okay, I have Islam and Samira. Islam?
Sabina.
Sabina, okay, interesting name, okay, yes, okay, go ahead, yes.
Sabina.
لا اسلام.
Okay. Your point is absolutely correct, Anna. بس I want to state something. The point that the institutions are mostly objective and they mostly follow the scientific methods, this is not necessarily the truth. Because let's take مثلا California, for example. California is one of the most liberal states in the US, in the United States. And during the last couple of years, we would actually see drag queens entering into kindergarten classrooms and actually dancing. And I'm sorry for this word, يعني بس
Basically.
working out in front of kids. طب at the end of the day, you're saying that that these institutions are mostly objective, mostly follow the scientific methods. But at the same time, when these stuff actually happens and drag queens come, and to this extent, لا ما هنا I need برضه to raise a question. You say that the parents aren't the best, and sometimes they might have other different intentions other than the best of intentions to the child, which is correct, absolutely correct. But at the same time, we need to point out that the institutions themselves are both the most objective. For example, there is another incident where gay and queer or people from the LGBTQ plus community actually went down to the streets of Los Angeles and with some high officials, and they would actually get off or remove the U-turn street signs because they thought that these signs diminished them in one way or another.
We're talking mainly about books.
What?
Just a clarifying question, which signs, like signs about
The
what?
signs, the U-turn signs, the road. I can get
But like, yes, yes,
Yeah,
saying.
it's just, I understand the actions, yes, specific, we're talking about having books in the library available,
yes.
mainly.
These stuff, my point is that we shouldn't really trust them. These people do that. That means that their books or the books of choice or their choices in general might not be the best book. This is my main point.
Sabina?
I wanted to talk about what restriction would lead to. Because just like we said before, so restrictions would lead to restrictions in research, and it will also lead children to not be able to fact check what they are going to see on the internet. Books give a sort of maybe not certainly real thing, but they will be able to see different experiences, different ways of explaining things, and not just a post on Twitter or Instagram explaining something. So also the internet itself always overtake on other subjects. So for example, you will always see certain topics that will always be on your timeline because you have an algorithm and everything. So you won't be able to to have real knowledge about other things that concern you and be able to protect you. So for example, things about your body, consent, and other things like this. I had an example. So when I was younger, we had a book, a series about called Max and Lily. And it was two children that were going just through life, experiencing it, and they would always get themselves in situations, and the whole book would just explain it. Okay, so in this book, they would maybe have they would encounter different cultures, they would see different people with different sexualities, different religions, and it would just explain their perspective and the type of question that they might ask as a children. And this book would just enter them, just give them a brief introduction to it, just to explain that all of this is not weird or it's not weird or dangerous. It's just how people live, and to give them a sort of a buffer, something to for them to bounce back and to not directly go into intolerance or to think about it in a violent manner that could lead to violence within the school itself.
So you're talking about having books that introduce to diversity without an orientation.
No, not necessarily. Just giving an introduction to explain it for them to not stray away from it and to go for maybe extremism on extremism.
It's not like we felt like at least an automatic negative stance. So like the information that's more explicit, I guess, from like that's more like based on supported research or not like false claims or something.
Exactly. Yes. So most books are done also by researchers and academics, and they would just like give a preview for children because we're still talking about like little children. And just for them to not fall into intolerance directly. So that's good.
To avoid the hate speech in the future. Okay, so we've got like 2 minutes left, exactly 2 minutes, because our class is gonna start at 2, so we have to wrap it up. Concluding notes, maybe both of you, okay?
So what you're really made me think about was this aspect that I don't know if anyone's touched on yet in this debate, is what books really mean and what they include. I feel like we've been assuming that books are these sort of homogeneous, like scientific based research, but the books in schools are mostly like literature, stories, etc. And these are all ideologically based on their authors that are not usually scientifically based researchers. Most of them have BAs. I don't think most authors of these like school level books have very high degrees. Secondly, there are books that are bad. For example, I can think of Colleen Hoover's depictions of domestic violence. If a child has a super popular book, children are exposed to this, maybe this is the assumption that they take on domestic violence. So the kinds of books also matter, and the kinds of books are things that should be able to be restricted by parents.
No,
To respond to Islam's point really quickly, I just wanted to say that your point on like LGBT people like getting rid of uterine science or whatnot, the issue with that point is that you're generalizing an entire community of people based on one extremist group, which is the same fallacy that people used to generalize all Muslims as terrorists. Like I'm a Muslim myself, but I'm sure most of you here are, and none of us are terrorists at the end of the day. So I think we need to be careful when we look at groups and what some small group, like what some small extremist groups do, because it doesn't always apply to everyone, and it doesn't necessarily
Correlate.
correlate. Yeah.
Sorry, may I respond in 2 sentences?
no, shoot.
Yes, absolutely, you're absolutely correct. The same thing goes with the parents.
Okay, Sarah?
Sarah.
Sarah, yes.
My concluding remarks is I feel like we're giving too much value to the documentation and little less for human agency. I feel like the way this debate is going is that once the children are exposed to something, then it seems like they're going to stick or believe in it till the rest of their life, but I feel like this is false. I feel like we still have the human agency to decide what we believe in. For example, I've been in Western education for my whole entire life, but I still hold the traditional values because I have my human agency to think and to decide what I want to believe in. The opposite might also be true.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to cut this short. Thank you so much, everyone. It's really interesting. I need your emails, so I need you to just like,
Actually need like
yes, just
the emails just so we can.
name and email. Name and email. Name and email.
You could write your full names and emails so that we know how to contact you.
Parents برضو عندهم أي الموضوع subjective.
ايوه البوينت بتاعتك كويسة.
ايوه انا فاهم ولعلمك التصرفات